I'm thinking of buying Palantir stock. Do you think the stock has good growth potential? The PEG ratio is below 1 and has very little to no debt. Should I buy now at $15.33 or wait for a retracement? Non-financial advice. So, one of the reasons I look at multiple sources and do my own calculations is sometimes you can read things, and I think you got your PEG from Yahoo Finance, and sometimes their calculations are different. So let's talk about a proper PEG. I look at a 5-year based EBITDA growth rate and a PE ratio without NRI. That is key for me, and because of this, because they haven't had that level of profitability yet, it's different. But before we jump in, let's talk about some of the stuff as well. Actually, just go to the same thing. What concerns me about this stock? First of all, I make sure I have these numbers. So they did make the last quarter earnings. I think they made about $28 million in profit. Let's 4x that. Call it $100 million. They have about $2.1 billion in shares outstanding. So that's about 5 cents a share of profit, which is not very good. If you're calculating a PE of 30, and I'll walk through some calculations of what I believe the fair value is with a conservative PE of 30 in a minute. But when we look at this chart here, you will see, oh yes, growth looks good. Top line growth is going to hit about 3.18 billion by 2026, end of 2025. Hey, Stephen, buddy, we'll talk about your stuff in a minute too. And earnings are growing too. They're going to be making about $419 million again, year end 2025, call it 2026. But there are some problems. Is that growth ratio enough? Is the profitability enough to support 2.1 billion shares? Not sure. There's also another nasty surprise digging into the Palantir numbers. They diluted by 11% last year because they like to give their executives lots of stock. So they rain down stock on the executives, and you as a retail investor get screwed. They also only had 13% income growth. 11% dilution, 13%. You're hardly treading water at that case. So let's look at the math behind the numbers and where we are. So number of shares outstanding as of today, 2.1 billion. EPS forecast is 19 cents. Year end 2025, call it 2026. Take a PE of 30. You back into that. 19 cents times 30 is $5.70. If you want to play with it, give it a PE of 50 or 40. You get to wherever you want to be, but you're not going to get to the price we're at now. Now, looking at the fair value based on many different factors, it's about $15.53. And you look at the top analysts that actually assess Palantir, like JP Morgan and others, they assign 1 year from now, it'll be at $14. So that is not looking pretty. We're basically at fair value over analyst targets, which means there's not a lot of upside, which means we don't really like it. There's also a lot of struggles. With this whole AI revolution, they claim to have the best AGI out there, but no, there's a lot of competition now. And the revenue is not reflecting that growth. So a lot of people, early this year got so excited about Palantir and they jumped on it. It's like, oh, it's going to go to $500. I can't tell you the number of $500 Palantir thumbnails that I see around YouTube. It's ridiculous. Do the math. It's not hard. So what I do recommend, though, is it looks like it could be a very nice range rider. Again, we're looking at one of our models here. You see the trend is currently down, but there are some nice juicy layers between $15 to about $17.50 up to $19, $20. You can actually play these ranges. So you could buy at, say, $15, sell the first half of it at $17.50 and the next half at $19.99, and then buy back in again, up and down, up and down. I do believe this will become a range rider because the fundamentals aren't strong. Dilution is strong, but the revenue growth is not there. So until they really start growing like a company like Tesla, I'm not interested. And ignore those $500 thumbnails. They are just stupid. Okay, so hope that helps. And by the way, I don't know who puts out these $500 thumbnails, but people keep sending to me and say, hey, this guy says Palantir is going to 500. What should I do? Should we buy it? I'm like, no. But trade it. Don't buy it. Don't buy it as a keeper, long-term keeper.